Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Late Night with the Gringo. So I am the Reluctant Gringo, and for those of you who don't know me or who aren't subscribers, and actually for my subscribers, yes, this is what I look like without a mask, and usually I'm wearing one of my luchador masks. But this is the first time I'm ever streaming live with me on camera. Normally, when I'm streaming video games, all you hear is my voice, which is kind of cool because usually my son is with me, but he is actually in university, so it's just me. And so I wanted to start streaming. I've been wanting to do this for a little while. I was actually waiting. For those of you that know me, that have been with me for a year, know that I live in Mexico, and that we are building a house. And there's a whole room that's just dedicated to my stuff, which is basically streaming, YouTube, things like that. And I was waiting to get into that house, which is going to be ready in about a month or so. But I've been gone for about a week, which some of you have noticed as well. And again, for those of you that have been with me for about a year, know that I do suffer from a chronic illness. And normally it's under control, but for the last week or so, it's it kind of put me down for a little bit. And so I decided after that, I said to myself, you know what? I am going to go ahead and I'm going to set up a little studio here in the Airbnb that we have, as you can see behind me, and just start to do it and start to grow the channel even more. Again, my channel's only a year old, and you all know that I do like to talk about pop culture. I like to talk about politics. I like to talk about comics, and we're going to talk a lot about that because for the last week, we've had a lot of news. Of course, some of you are sad, and a lot of you are very happy with what's going on with the last week. And we're going to dig into some of those stories. We're going to dig into some of those things and hopefully have some fun. And that's really what it's all about. It's just having some fun and connecting and seeing what you guys think. So again, feel free to comment, feel free to share, feel free to like. But this is me. This is what I look like without a mask. So many of you asked, hey, what do you look like without a mask? This is it. This is no big deal. And, but yeah, so let's get into it. So the election, it's been interesting watching the U.S. election, and it's interesting watching news in general from the United States from a different country. You get a different perspective, a ton of different opinions that you wouldn't get in the United States alone, just from mainstream media or even from, the new media, which, podcasts and things like that. And that, one of the things that really struck me as this election continued and went on was the idea that, Latino voters, what's going on with Latino voters. And, there's a border crisis. We all know that. And one party expected them to get all the Latino voters, the Democratic Party, and a good chunk of them went over to the Republican Party in record numbers. And just so you know, again, I think before we actually get into this, give you a little bit about where my bias stands. I was born and raised in the bastion of liberalism, which is Massachusetts. I was a Democrat for a long, long time in my early years. And I moved to Michigan. We've lived in Michigan, my family and I. We've lived in Texas, which was awesome. I spent some time in California, but since then I've become a Republican. So I grew up a Kennedy Democrat, which is not the kind of Democrat you see nowadays. That Democratic Party no longer exists, the Kennedy Democrat. It just doesn't exist. And I found myself, so now I'm a registered Republican. So I have a little bit of knowledge of how each party works and each party thinks. And just so you know where my bias stands, I think that's kind of only fair. If we're going to talk about politics, then you kind of have an idea where my opinion is coming from. So getting back to this idea of the border, Mexico. I live in Mexico. I am married to a citizen of Mexico, and my children are half and half. So I think I bring a unique perspective. And in talking to a lot of people down here during the time leading up to the election, you get a kind of idea of like, oh, we're not so different. And I'm going to kind of explain that in a second. I think what you see when I watch mainstream media, especially the Democratic side, now that it's over, they kind of don't understand like why this, why that. Most of the people that I talk to down in this country feel the same way about the border crisis as most of the people that voted Republican in the election a little under a week ago. And let me explain that. you see all these videos of caravans of people coming up, from Venezuela, Guatemala, Nicaragua, wherever, right? All these countries. Well, they've got to go through Mexico to get to the United States. And now that I've been here for a few years, and I've been here with my wife for a few years, we've been all over. We've lived in all over. We've lived from Mexico City to Puebla to Querétaro, anywhere and everywhere in between. We've been all around the country, just really acting like nomads. And it's interesting to see how the country has changed and how the country, first of all, to become immigration in Mexico is very difficult. It's not easy. It's easy for me because I'm married to a citizen of Mexico, right? But when you talk to normal people and you see what's going on in this country, it's pretty similar to what's going on in the United States. And so the rank and file, regular people of Mexico, regular citizens of Mexico, especially the ones that are in the rural and smaller cities and smaller areas, will tell you, they would tell you, we hope Trump wins. And again, I'm not saying all of Mexico is endorsing Trump. I don't want anybody to get that. But for the most part, the majority, 80 to 85% of the conversations when people talk to me about American politics, especially in the last few months, I've been told, we hope Trump wins. Hope Trump wins. Why? Well, think about it. You think about the number of immigrants that have made their way through the southern border of the United States. Well, now think about the chaos that is caused as they move up through the country of Mexico, right? And it's not uncommon. There's an immigration crisis here now, as much as there is in the southern United States. And so the people of Mexico, I'm not saying the government, but people of Mexico really want it to stop as well. They really want that deterrence as well, so they don't have to deal with it. It's not uncommon for me to be out riding down the highway. Sometimes we take the bus. The bus systems here are great, by the way. If you ever come to Mexico, you travel on a nice bus. They're very professional, clean, comfortable. They all have TV. It's great. Anyways, so it's not uncommon for us to see the state police or the National Guard of Mexico pull over a vehicle. And they're not looking for drugs. They're not looking for weapons. They're looking for illegal immigrants that are here in Mexico, whether they're from, again, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador, wherever, right? Could be anywhere, right? But they're looking for those, and they don't want them here. As much as the majority of the people who voted in the election don't want illegal immigration out of control in the United States, it's the same down here in Mexico. So there's a very symbiotic relationship between these two countries in more ways than one. And I think that's something that people in the media don't understand when they talk to Latino voters in the United States. They all have families down here that tell them, hey, this is what's going on, and this is what's happening, and this is the stuff that, crime is up here. They have all, we talk about trafficking, human trafficking when it comes to the border crisis. Well, where do you think a lot of those people come from? This country, right? I once posted a short a long time ago. I think it was around the time The Sound of Freedom came out. I was in a bus station, and it was in the smallest town of the smallest state of this country. And they literally had a billboard, glass billboard, double wide, 4 feet long, 4 feet high. And it was just wall to wall, corner to corner of missing posters, babies, children, little girls, little boys, teenagers, men and women alike, missing. And it wasn't just that it was one layer. It was just thick. It was like, 3 or 4 or 5 just on top of each other because they just didn't have the room. And again, this is in the smallest country. This is in the smallest town in the smallest state of the country. So you can imagine what happens everywhere else. So it is a problem. And so when families that are in the United States talk to their families down here, well, that's what influences them. And so to me, it was no wonder. And when I saw that Latino voters were heavily breaking in a way for the Republican Party that I never thought I'd ever see in my life, or I never thought I'd see in my life if you asked me 8 years ago, it didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise my wife. It didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise anybody else that I talk to and hang out with and speak politics with, whether it's a taxi driver or a family relative down here. It does not surprise me. And I think that's something that people don't quite understand, is that the border crisis isn't just affecting the United States. It's affecting the country of Mexico in a very, very bad way. And yes, there's some very, very bad actors in the northern part of the country, and that's going to have to be dealt with. But I want, if people would take a moment, and I hear, well, how could Latino voters, Mexicans especially, because that's the larger one of the or Puerto Ricans. Let's say Puerto Ricans and Mexicans. We're going to get into both of those. How could they vote for Trump? How could they vote for Trump? Why wouldn't it was amazing. Like a couple of days after, even up until this day, and I was watching some of the news today. Some of the MSNBC coverage and some of the CNN coverage, labeling people in that racial group as misogynists, racists. Listen, nothing could be further from the truth. I'm going to share my screen here. Oh, by the way, I know a lot of streams have like a bunch of people behind them, engineers, whatnot. By the way, it's just me. I got a MacBook, an iPhone, and a microphone. That's what I got. And these headphones right here. So it's it's just me. So there will be technical difficulties. This is my first time doing this. I did a couple test runs, but this is my first time doing this. So please be patient. If there is a technical difficulty, I do apologize for that. But I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk about what the reality is when it comes to Latino voters and if they really are misogynists. Because no, it's the people of the United States might be, I think really misinterpreting something. So let me go ahead and share my screen here, and hopefully this comes out the right way here. All right. So when I hear Mexicans labeled as misogynists, they don't like women in power, I want everybody to realize and just go back a few months that Mexico voted in their first ever female president. And there's her picture, President Sheinbaum, right? They voted in a woman president before the United States ever did. So to call the Mexican people misogynists, so to say they didn't vote for Kamala Harris because she's a woman, is absolute garbage. It's absolute bullcrap. Nothing could be further from the truth. And if people would just open their eyes and maybe look beyond their borders, and I'm talking about mainstream media that's using all these slurs that are supposed to be so worldly and global and all, they're really not, because they don't see the facts right in front of them. That this nation that I'm in right now has a female president way before the United States. So it's got nothing to do with misogyny. So it's got nothing to do with Latinos do not like misogyny. Furthermore, let's look at Puerto Rico, because that was a big voting bloc that they also slurred. Oh, well, what just happened a few months ago? Well, Puerto Rico's governor race, the statehood candidate who's pro-Trump edges ahead. Well, actually, she won. That's Jennifer Gonzalez Colon. She is now the governor of Puerto Rico. And I guess the narrative that Puerto Ricans are also misogynist because they didn't break for Kamala Harris in a bigger way, I guess that really doesn't exist either. Or at least maybe we're just turning a blind eye. So again, to me, facts matter when I think we look at politics. And I think it's very important that we enter this new age of, I think it's authenticity. I think we're seeing a lot more authenticity in our alternative media, that we have to be honest. It wasn't misogyny that lost Kamala Harris the election. At least in the Latino population, and I doubt it in any other population. I don't think that was the case. But like I said, you see two different segments of this Latino population, whether it's Puerto Rican, Mexican, they have voted in for a woman to be their leader. So that argument, again, it's crap. It's bull. It just doesn't hold water. And the idea that women in general didn't break for Kamala Harris, again, it's one of those arguments where I think you have to look at the facts. Is Donald Trump a misogynist? Are Republicans a misogynist? Well, again, let's look at the facts. We're not even going to look at past. Let's just look at what he's doing right now. The first ever, Susan Wiles, the first ever chief of staff as a woman. That is historic. And that says something. That says that he's just looking for the best person to put in place, and it happens to be her, and she happens to be a woman. So this idea that Republicans and women, and there's some sort of misogyny narrative going around, or that women aren't as valued in the Republican Party as they are in the Democratic Party, again, it's misinformation, it's disinformation, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And just to give you a little bit, as we see today, Congresswoman Stefanik is going to be our UN ambassador. A woman, again, Nikki Haley was the UN ambassador for Donald Trump the first time around, but everybody seems to forget that. Apparently, Donald Trump, again, like the Democratic Party, like Mark Cuban said, he doesn't like smart, intelligent women. Well, again, that is a lie. That's disinformation. It's slander. It's just a lot of crap. So when I see this, here is a smart, intelligent woman who's going to be the representative of the United States at the United Nations on the Security Council. Now, we can debate back and forth whether the United Nations is a good thing, a bad thing, an effective thing, a non-effective thing. We can have that debate all day long if you want. I certainly have my thoughts. However, to have this person in charge or be that representative, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal because it's saying to the rest of the world, especially parts of the world where women really don't have rights. And that's, again, another conversation we can talk about when it comes to the United States, where women say, we don't have rights. You have no idea what it means to have no rights. You have all the rights in the world. Come down here to Mexico. We'll talk about no rights. Come down, in the struggles some women have. Let's go to the Middle East and we'll see that. But anyways, not to get sidetracked, here's another woman. Never mind Tulsi Gabbard, who's part of the co-chair of the transition team, a very powerful position, a strong, intelligent woman, right? Never mind that we have Laura Trump, his daughter-in-law, who's in charge of the Republican committee. Again, so it's just these things, when I hear these things sitting down here, and I put on the American news, and I put on, and again, I try to watch Fox News, I try to watch MSNBC, I try to watch CNN, I try to consume as much as I can as far as news is concerned to get as many points of view. And it invariably, just one side just isn't adding up. And this idea, again, this war on women, this idea that there's a misogyny out there, it just doesn't hold water. And sitting down here and seeing what real misogyny is sometimes, real problems with the rights of women, the freedom of women, because they do have some issues down here that are very, very serious. And one day we'll cover those. And I don't want to get into those right now, but they just, again, the narrative doesn't translate. And I think when you start to read the news and you start to actually look into things and you start to see the facts, you start to understand what's really going on, and you start to know that somebody's not telling you the truth. So now, it was interesting watching the election. I stayed up all night watching it from down here, with my wife. My son was on the phone with me most of the night. He's over in another continent. He's over in Europe. And interesting getting that perspective. And it wasn't surprising. We kind of figured that's what was going to happen. We had done our mail-in ballots weeks before. And so we weren't surprised with the outcome. We weren't surprised with what was going on. And, there's this other narrative right now that's coming out about the current president, Joe Biden. And the idea that he is, well, how do I put this? I'm going to go back here. Again, pardon me for any type of technical glitch. We're going to cover the Harris campaign in a second. The idea, there's this debate, is he the worst president ever? And I've heard that said, and no, he's not. Let's get that right off the bat. I'm not a Joe Biden apologist. He's not the worst president ever. He's damaged some things greatly. He's made some real hard decisions and been wrong about them. But is he the worst president ever? No. Yeah, there's been foreign wars that have started, but I look back at, I've been alive for almost half a century. And I look at, I started out as, Jimmy Carter. That was a bad presidency. He got a raw deal with a lot of things, but that was a bad presidency. You look at George W. Bush, Junior there, and Bush 2 or whatever you want to call him. And his first term was, nothing bad happened until 9/11, but then you see his second term and the wars that he started and the thousands that died. So, I think when you finally have to put Joe Biden in perspective, is he the worst president ever? No, he's not. Is he good? No, absolutely. The economy. Let me give you an example. Everybody talks about inflation. I'm going to put it in. We have currency exchange here. You have dollars in the United States. And of course we bring our dollars over here. We change them into pesos. When we came down here, it was being the end of the Trump presidency, the first term, the beginning of Biden's presidency, and he had put in his economic plans and made a bunch of executive orders. So what happened to the U.S. dollar? And here's really, a lot of things are thrown out. Inflation, I get it. Inflation's out of control. I got family in the United States. It is out of control. I get it. And it needs to get under control. And hopefully it will get under control in a couple months. But here's the real deal. What happened to the U.S. dollar? Here's the real thing that no one talks about. Here's what happened to the U.S. dollar. So we had come down, and one U.S. dollar was equal to about 21, almost 22 pesos, which is an amazing exchange rate. Amazing exchange rate down here in Mexico. And throughout the time that we were here, and as those Biden policies ticked in, the value of the dollar lost. I think at one point, I think the lowest it went was about $15.50. So one US dollar was 15 pesos, 15 and a half pesos. And when you think about that, you really have to realize that you lost over 25% of the dollar's value. And you see that happening not just with Mexico, but with other foreign countries. How much value the dollar has lost due to those policies. And so you talk about inflation. Well, inflation compounded with the loss of the value of the dollar in that terms. So again, there's a lot so it was really, really harmful. And now that Trump is back in, you see some of the monetary policies already start to change here in this country and around the country because they're getting ready for Trump to get back in. And you see immediately, it's almost like overnight. It went from, I said to my wife, I said, it's 16 pesos. Now it's 17. Now it's 18. Now it's well over 20. It's almost, at one point it was 21. It's way back up to that really great exchange rate. And so $1 is making a lot of money for us at this point, or we're able to, and to give you an idea, what a peso is worth. All right. For $4 US, maybe 5, maybe 6, my wife and I can go to the corner cafe, really nice cafe, sit down and have breakfast, full breakfast. It's like $5, $6. I want to order eggs, bacon, whatever, tortillas, beans and rice, whatever I want to order, right? Orange juice, coffee. She orders whatever, pancakes, whatever, right? So that's like $4 or $5, $6, right? And so it really, the ability to live here in this country on a little bit of dollars is greatly affected. So again, just to give you an idea that you almost lost, that the dollar lost at one point was down in certain countries over 25% in value. And that was an amazing hit to the economy. And it's something that people don't talk about when it comes to the inflation. You had that on top of it. And that was also rooted in some of the problems we had. But is Biden the worst president ever? No, we've had worse. Was he good? No. No, I really struggle again as a former Democrat, again, a Kennedy Democrat, as a former Kennedy Democrat, Truman Democrat, FDR Democrat, that Democratic Party that doesn't exist anymore. And that's why I became a Republican. God, I have to look back probably 8, 9, 10, 12 years ago. And that was partly moving to Texas. It's a whole different world when you move from just outside of Boston, where liberalism isn't just a way of life, it's institutionalized everywhere. It's progressivism. And then you move down to South Texas, and that's where we were, Southeast Texas. And that's that was a culture shock, a culture change. I think I was the only person in my neighborhood that didn't own a gun, which was fine. That's fine. I have no problem with Second Amendment. Everybody wants, you want to own it. But it was kind of funny because people, I'd say my friend, I'd made friends and they're like, they had safes in their house. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'd heard of these things. They'd open it up. There's tons of guns. And I'd be like, wow, okay, that's different. I've never seen that before, but it was fine. The whole different world. But it really was, I felt like I had a lot, my wife and I, both of us, we felt like we had a lot more freedom in the state of Texas than we did. And Michigan's funny. We went from Massachusetts to Michigan to Texas. Michigan is like, depending on the type of day or what day of the week it is, it's either conservative or it's a liberal state. It's a swing state for a reason. And then because I worked for a technology company, I was out in California, different reasons. That's where liberalism is like a lifestyle. It's more of a lifestyle. Whereas like I said, in Massachusetts and New England, it's an institution. That's the difference. But either way, so let's talk about, Trump is getting all the flowers and credit, and that's great. And I think we're excited to see him get his inauguration. He's got some great picks so far for his cabinet. But let's get to the elephant in the room. the Harris campaign. Now, I was reading a bunch of articles and I chose this one. Harris campaign reportedly spent six figures on Call Her Daddy podcast with fewer than 1 million YouTube views. And why did I pick up this article? Well, again, it's starting to hit mainstream, and I saw a lot of it today. The Harris campaign, in 3 months, you have to realize she was only running for 3 months, spent over $1 billion. They had $1 billion. They spent it. They're actually $20 million in debt. They actually overspent $1 billion in their campaign, in their losing campaign. And a lot of people are asking, well, where'd the money go? Well, she did this podcast. She didn't want to fly to the podcast. She just didn't want to. So she wanted to have the host come to the hotel where she was at. And so they had to design a brand new studio, build a studio just for this podcast she was doing for an hour, half hour, however long she was doing it. It cost over $100. It cost six figures. So they did a lot of stupid stuff like this. But other things that they did, and this has come out because it's public, and now they're going to start going into the books to see what's going on. Oprah Winfrey actually got $1 million for her town hall. So Oprah Winfrey, who you thought, well, maybe she's doing this because she loves Harris. She's a Democrat. She wants to see this woman become president. And maybe she did. I don't know. But she got paid, apparently, or at least her event production or her Harpo production got paid $1 million. This woman's a billionaire, and she got paid $1 million to do that town hall. She didn't do it for free. She got paid. All the celebrities got paid. It's not going to start to come up because, again, all that paperwork, all that financial paperwork has to be filed, and it becomes public record. And the Washington Examiner and the Washington Post and the New York Times is starting to get that stuff and start to run articles on it. So all those celebrities, they got paid. So when you see all the celebrities that did those, they all get paid. But if we're talking $1 billion, to give you a rest, Trump's campaign was $357 million. That's how much he spent. Again, that's a gross amount of money. But compared to $1 billion, it's nothing. It's more reasonable. I can swallow $357 million a lot easier than a campaign burned through $1 billion. And so where did this money go? It went to consultants. It went to Washington insiders. People got huge salaries. They had an interview with Jordan Belfort, who's the Wolf of Wall Street. He said this is something that he would have done. It's a pyramid scheme. Money laundering. That's what those were his words, not mine. His words. I don't want to accuse anybody of a crime. But it was funny. You think about it, like, where did all this money go? What happened? I mean, you blew through $1 billion, and you're still $20 million in debt. You still owe people money. Which, by the way, when Trump heard that, he offered to pay the $20 million in the name of unity, which made me laugh hilariously. I think it's hilarious. He sent out a tweet. He sent it out on X and on Truth Social. Hey, I'll pay you $20 billion debt. I thought that was awesome. I mean, why not? Just constantly trolling it. But again, $1 billion. And we're going to start to see where a lot of this money went. And I'm sure it's not good that we got overcharged or these donors. So if you donated to that campaign, there was a lot of overcharging. And even today, right now, they are actually soliciting money from donors in the Democratic Party. And I'm not saying it's to pay the $20 million. It's to fund a recount. It's to fund a recount of the general election, which doesn't make any sense because he won by a landslide. Was it a landslide, Reagan-esque landslide, Nixon-type landslide where, the other guy only wins Washington and D.C. and maybe Massachusetts? No, it wasn't that kind of landslide. But it was a landslide. Let's be upfront and honest about it. It was a landslide victory. It was a mandate. I don't think if you look at a map of the election and you ask it to show you any county where she performed 3% better than Joe Biden in the 2020, there are none. She didn't. It was an absolute, it's a landslide. It's a mandate. Like it or not. Again, I'm not telling you to like it. I'm not telling you not to like it. I'm just saying those are the facts. It's a landslide. But $1 billion to lose in that kind of landslide, you have to start to think to yourself, where did the $1 billion go? It's going to be real interesting when all these papers that they file do get made public, do get into the public domain, do get on the internet and see exactly who got paid what they got paid, what their salaries were, where all this money went. One of the things, again, in this same article that I'm looking at right here, if you want to read, it's on Fox News. they talk about advertising and things like that, but they also talk about private jets at one point. There was another article that talks about private jets being spent on the campaign. And I just have to ask, why would they need a private jet or private jets? Again, maybe I'm ignorant, but she has Air Force too. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how many private jets did they need? Like, who is flying where? What was going on? I get it. Tim Walz needed to fly someplace, a vice president. I get that. There's staff. I get that. But for the most part, Air Force Two was taking a lot of people everywhere they were going. And I'm sure that there was, other perks and things like that in there. Anyways, so $1 billion. And let me just put you that in perspective. 1980, I get it. It's 44 years ago. When Ronald Reagan ran for president in 1980 against Jimmy Carter and won in a landslide, the New York Times actually wrote an article, and I actually went and looked up this article, and because they were amazed that he had spent the maximum amount of money you could spend. Turns out it was $12 million. Now, if you adjust for inflation, that only comes out to $48 million. So Ronald Reagan in 1980 spent the equivalent of $48 million. Donald Trump spending $357. Kamala Harris is spending $1 billion. Something is wrong. I get it. There's different news sources, digital, whatnot, but it can't be that expensive. It just can't be. It just can't be. Something's wrong. Something just doesn't add up. It just doesn't smell right. And I think most of you can agree that it doesn't smell right. I think we're going to find out more and more as the days and weeks go on and we start to dig into this, because $1 billion is a lot of money in 3 months. But there you go. When I look at that, I think to myself, well, I'm not sure they could have run the economy. If they're spending $1 billion and still in debt and they lost, they probably couldn't have won. And that's probably they probably couldn't run the economy. And that's probably the truth of the matter, that maybe the country made the right choice at this point. I think if you needed any other type of evidence, to me, that's the biggest piece of evidence right there. And, but it's not over yet for Ms. Harris. This was the funniest thing I've seen today. Now, this is what I call a trial balloon. And in politics, there's a few things. So this guy right here, he's the former chief of staff, communications director, something like that for Kamala Harris, former staffer, calls on Biden to resign right now so Kamala Harris can just become the next president, the 47th president for the last month and a half. Therefore, we now have a female president. I know, it sounds dumb. It just sounds dumb. I get it. But to me, this is what, again, people don't understand. I do have a background in politics, in political science. This is a trial balloon. This is what, it's one of three things. It's either this guy's going out on his own, just saying something, just wanting to be the guy who says it and get some press for it and get some publicity, and that could be the case. This could be a pressure campaign on the other side of the Democratic Party that's trying to install Kamala Harris and get her a win. And he's just part of it. Again, that could be it. Or it could be a trial balloon, which is where when the government wants to see if something's going to work or how popular something's going to be, they do something like this. They send some random dude out there to say something to an interviewer or to a newspaper. It's called a trial balloon. And then they see, well, how's that going to work? How's that play? What kind of press? What was the reaction of most people? Is it a good idea? Maybe it's not a good idea. But that's what this seems like, a trial balloon to me. Again, a dumb idea, because that's not the spirit of the Constitution. It's not a game. It's not musical chairs here. It's just, that's not what this is. It's not the spirit of Constitution. And if they did this, I think if they went through this, with the Democratic Party wouldn't win an election for another 20, 30 years, just because it would just look terrible. It would just look terrible. But I don't think Joe Biden's going anywhere. I think he's going to serve out the rest of his thing. The other one is that not just make her the first female president, but before Biden's presidency is over, there's some talk that they were trying to pressure Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor, the Latina on the bench, trying to pressure her to resign, her liberal, because she's one of the three liberals on the bench, pressure her to resign because she's 70 years old and she's diabetic, which again, this is a lifetime. It's her decision when she wants to resign. She should never be, no Supreme Court justice should be pressured to resign unless they have some severe failing mental issue, which is keeping them from actually doing their job. But they were and then within the next, before Trump becomes president, takes the United, they rush her through a Senate hearing and confirm Kamala Harris as the next justice of the Supreme Court. What a terrible idea. Why is it a terrible idea? Because she couldn't answer basic questions about policy. Justice Sotomayor, I disagree with 80% of the things that she says in her opinions, whether they're in the majority or the minority. I disagree. I'm a constitutionalist. I look at the Constitution in a very strict way. That's just the way I look at it. Justice Sotomayor is an interpreter. She interprets it. She's not a strict constitutionalist. So therefore, it's a difference of philosophy. But Justice Sotomayor is, again, disagree with her. She's still brilliant. She's still brilliant. She's still one of the smartest, judicial members in the country. And never mind that she's on the Supreme Court. But when she does hand down a ruling, it's, you could tell she's done her research. There's thought behind it. There's an argument behind it. There's meat on that bone. Again, disagree with a lot of what she has to say or a lot of her view, but there's meat on that bone. And to the idea that you're going to force her out, just because you're afraid that Trump might pick somebody conservative to take her spot. Now, you don't know if she's going to retire. Like, she's 70. People stay on the court until they're 90. She has no intention of retiring. I think it's just, to me, it's disgusting to see Supreme Court justices treated in that way. I think there's been a real lack of civility, real lack of respect towards Supreme Court justices on both sides, whether they're, the 3 liberals or the 6 conservatives. I think all 9 of them deserve a certain level of respect and a certain level of, separation of powers. That's the other thing. I think when you start pressuring justices to retire for political gain or political opportunity, you're violating the spirit of the Constitution when it comes to separation of powers. And so things like this, when I see things like this, I think to myself, they're trial balloons. They're trying to see what's going to fly and what's not going to fly. And I don't think either one is going to happen. I think Joe Biden is going to end his presidency and be happy and go off to Delaware. And he's not going to give Kamala Harris the time of day. That's just my opinion. But again, this is a little trial balloon. You're going to see it in the news today, probably tomorrow. There'll be some talk about it. There might even be a little bit of a debate about it over the weekend as the week ends. But I don't think any of this is going to happen, right? So, but yeah, a lot of fun stuff in the news when it comes to the election. But it was a landslide. It was a landslide, and I don't think you can really argue that. You can't really argue that. Now, the other thing that came up is this. Is this the? I've seen a lot of channels on YouTube. This is the end of woke. This is the end of DEI. It might be the end of DEI. Now, if you've been with me for the last year, you know that I hate DEI. I had to deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion as a program in corporate America for a long, long time. Absolutely hated it. I didn't agree with anything about it. But I had to incorporate it because, you work for a company, you have to do what they ask you to do, or you leave, which is what I did. I left. I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And I left. I just didn't want to do it anymore. Is this the end of DEI? It's going to be the end of DEI for most of the government and the military, because that's going to be what the mandate is. And that's going to be what the rules and executive orders are. Is it the end of woke? No. See, when you think about woke, and again, if you're woke or you agree with woke philosophy, I'm sorry, I don't. I just don't. I believe in meritocracy, but woke is a religion. You don't kill a religion very easily. Certainly an election does not kill a religion. It's going to minimize it. You're going to see less and less of it. I think you're going to see it confined to the coast. You're going to have the left coast, the right coast, right? New England, mostly, California, Washington, and Oregon. But people are jumping up and down. It's the end of woke. It's the end of woke. It's not the end of woke. woke is, it's like saying it's the end of Catholicism. It's not the end of, it's just not going to happen. It's going to be around for a long time. And to give you an example of it, this, which I had no idea what this next article was about till I actually read it. I said, what the hell is a 4B movement? After Trump's win, some women are considering the 4B movement. And when I read this article, then I was totally confident as a father, telling my my young adult sons, both of them, please don't marry, please don't marry a Western woman, please, especially an American. Please don't do that. Become a passport bro. Just don't do this to yourself. Apparently, the 4B movement started in South Korea, and women are basically, they are enraged and fed up after a majority of their male counterparts voted for a candidate who is found liable for sexual abuse, and his appointment of 3 conservative Supreme Court justices led to the overturning of national abortion right protections. So in response, they say they're swearing off men and they're encouraging others around the country to join them. We have pandered and begged for men's safety and done all the things that we were supposed to, and they still hate us, Ashley Pollard, a 36-year-old in St. Louis, told CNN. I'm not sure who hates you, Ashley. I don't know. Maybe, I used to be a school teacher, and I look at life like this. If I'm a school teacher and I had my class and my entire class failed the test, it wasn't the class. It was me as the teacher. I was teaching it improperly or wrong. I was doing something wrong. So if someone's complaining, everybody hates me, all men hate me, guess what? It's not men, Ashley. It's you. So that's the way that works. That's really what you have to do. If yeah, again, like I said, but that happened, where I was teaching a class and no one understood it. No one got it. And I realized it wasn't them. It was me. And I had to figure out a different way to reach them. So again, Ashley, it's not all men. All men don't hate you. You're just probably not a nice person to hang out with. So if you're going to hate us, then we're going to do what we want. Well, you can always do what you want. It's a free country. So what is the 4B movement? It is 4B is a shorthand for the 4 Korean words Bihan, Bikulsan, Bionne, and Bisakusu, which I hope I read that right, which translates to no marriage, no childbirth, no dating, and no sex with men. Okay. Let me know how that works out in 20 years for you. If you're 25 and then you become 45 and you've done the 4B movement, let me know. I can't wait to see those articles later on to see how that happens. But again, why I have always told my kids, become what do they call it? Passport bros. There you go. Thank God I married a woman from Mexico. Thank God. Anyways, because you get an independent, intelligent person who still believes that they're a woman. Anyways, 4B movement emerged in South Korea, blah, 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 2015, 2016. From an assistant professor in gender studies at the University of California, Los Angeles. Most popular among young women in their 20s. She described it as a fringe offshoot of Me Too and other feminist movements that arose in response to stark gender inequality in the country. Okay. You look at places like Korea, and I get that. They have some issues with women. Same thing here in Mexico. And here's where I think there's a level or degree of different takes on feminism. So when you go to Mexico City, if you ever come to Mexico City, first of all, it's one of the best cities in the world. A lot of fun. Holy fun. Lots of fun. But also awesome things to do. But if you go into the subway, here's where you realize, these women who protest really have something to protest. I started seeing, so I went down to the subway and I got my wife and we got on this escalator. It's a huge subway. It makes New York subways, as far as crowded and expanse, look like nothing, look like choo-choo trains. But there's these signs. And I was like, what are they? And I had my wife translate them. They basically were reminding men that groping women is a crime still. It's not to be tolerated. It's an epidemic. Like their trains are so crowded. And my wife said, no, it happens all the time. Men will just be on and women will just get grabbed like just randomly grabbed in different places. And when I say epidemic, I mean epidemic. It was happening so often. They had to post signs in the subway telling men not to do it. And then they had to go even a step further. There are some buses that when they pull up on the street, they have two sections. You get on the back section, the front section. The front section has paint stripes around it because only women are allowed on that section, women and children. All right. Same thing with the subways. You get down there and you think you're at the first car, but you're not. There's a plexiglass, an armed police officer. When I'm talking armed, I'm talking fully automatic weapon, riot gear and everything standing there, a little entryway through this plexiglass. And then the first three cars of the train are for women and little children only, so they don't get abused while riding the train. I'm not kidding you. This is a real thing. Like, I couldn't believe it. I should have taken a picture. I just didn't think of it at the time. I was just so amazed. But then I thought to myself, I'm with my wife. No one's touching my wife because again, I love being in this country, but I stand out. I'm 6'1", 250 pounds, bald and white. And I don't look nice. So I use that to my advantage. My wife and I get on the train car that is for both genders. She sits down, I stand in front of her and I stare everybody down. Again, probably looking like the ugly American, but I don't care at that point but that's where you when I see a protest for women's rights and things, I'm like, okay, they got a point. That this is an epidemic. That's okay. I get that. But when I see like you didn't vote for the political party that we wanted, so we're going to do this. That's just, again, silliness to me. It's just silly. So let me know how that works out in 40 or 50 years. And but as far as politics, those are the political stories that really captured my attention over the last week. I'm sure there were plenty more, but I wanted to get to some fun stuff. So speaking of inappropriate behavior, we're going to go to our favorite 90s rapper right now because I told you I cover politics and pop culture. I love them both. And so I want to make sure I cover some pop culture. Oh, actually, wait, before we do that, hold on. If you haven't seen this one, this was awesome. So it didn't get much press because the election, but 43 monkeys were on the loose in South Carolina. And you're probably thinking to yourself, where the hell did 43 monkeys come from? Well, good question. There's a biomedical research facility in the town of Yamasi in South Carolina that houses over 6,500 animals for medical research. Let that sink in. That is about 10 times the population of the actual town. So one day, one of the workers left one of the doors open and 43 female monkeys that look like this escaped into the town. And they have, as of today, caught, I think, 23 of them. So there's still 20 of them hanging out. Literally, they had to call out state police. They're using heat sensing radar. They're using also to catch these monkeys. Now, they say, please don't feed them. Keep your doors and windows locked in your house so they don't get in. But they're not dangerous, apparently, but they can be skittish, and skittish can lead to aggressive. And I don't care how small the monkey, these are little monkeys, right? They call them, they're little, they're smaller. I don't care how little the monkey is. It's a monkey. I love monkeys, by the way. If I could have one right now in this room, I would have one right now in this room, but I can't. But they are damn strong. Even the little ones are damn strong. So you don't want to piss one off or get one too nervous. So these monkeys are running around. Personally, I told my son I'd probably be leaving bananas and fruit and stuff out on the porch for them to eat. But again, you're not supposed to feed them either. So please don't feed them. They're cold, they're hungry, they're scared, and they're running around. Okay, fine. Keep your doors and windows locked. Okay, fine. They pose no danger. Then one other lady comes in, and she's from another group that's in this article for the ethical treatment of animals. And she's like, no, actually, it's very common that these monkeys, and I want to get the list of diseases right. Let's see. I'm talking. Oh, by the way, there's a picture of the research facility. That's the size of the research. This is Alpha Genesis Primate Research Center, houses up to 6,500 animals. Oh, 6 times. Sorry, not 10. 6 times Yemisi's human population. So again, lot of nasty stuff going on there. That is actually funded by the NIH. Thank you, Dr. Fauci. Excuse me, having a sip of coffee here. It is late night here. Let's see here. Alpha Genesis said the animals went on the run after a staff member accidentally left an enclosure open and that they were too young to carry diseases. The escaped monkeys were all young females weighing up to 3.2 kilograms or 7 pounds. I don't think that guy did it on accident. He's probably someone like me and said, you know what? I'm tired of seeing these monkeys treated this way. And it was just a little bit of rebellion. Oh, I accidentally left the door open. Now, I let 43 monkeys out into the wild because I thought it would be better for them. Okay, so here's some. Here's the ethical treatment of animals said that this is the Lisa Jones Engel, a primate scientist with people for the ethical treatment of animals, that these monkeys commonly have outbreaks in the lab of tuberculosis, dysentery, herpes, MRSA, and listeria, and those are among the outbreaks routinely seen among monkeys in U.S. laboratories. She added that insiders have revealed the animals were owned by the National Institute of Health, the U.S. government's biomedical and public health research agency, which she claimed pays the company to experiment on them. Oh, also, these monkeys, they were tattooed for identification purposes. So they have tattoos on their chest. Probably just numbers. It'd be interesting to see what those tattoos are. But yes, they actually tattoo the monkeys. So you have, at one point, you had 43 hungry, scared, cold, tattooed monkeys, female monkeys running around with possible diseases, and there's still about 20 of them running around right now to this moment. So if you're in South Carolina and you're looking for some fun, there you go. All right. Now back to everybody's favorite topic, inappropriate behavior. Another article that really was funny to me, and I wanted to share, and really just look, this is going to get a little... I already said to YouTube that this is not a children's video, so if you're a child, please stop listening to this. Diddy's freak-off room decor revealed, sex everywhere you look. Now, this article is an interview based off of the person who was paid up to $500,000 each time to decorate or set up the rooms for Diddy's parties. And this has been confirmed that this is the person who helped do this. They don't give the name, but here we go. Alrighty. One of the disgraced moguls planners came forward to describe the decor of the spaces in his mansion, saying the walls and ceilings were covered with hundreds of mirrors so Diddy could take in the scene from every angle. Oh, dear God. Everywhere you look, you'd see yourself reflected again and again, the planner, who asked not to be named, told the New York Post. Combs, who faces over 100 allegations, is known to have thrown the extravagant freak-offs with celebrities and models in attendance. Often his parties would turn into large, that word, which sometimes lasted for days. Days. I told you I'm an older gentleman. What it was like to be a teenager. Anyways, days, lasting for days. Hey, there he is. There's some white party there. You can imagine what it looked like when people are naked and having sex on the floor, on the couches, wherever, said the anonymous planner, who the Post confirmed worked with Combs in the early to mid-2000s. It was definitely a vibe he wanted to put out there, that everywhere you looked, there would be sex happening. It was wall-to-wall debauchery, the planner added. Jesus. When it came to cost, the planner said that Combs spared no expense for the extravagant events. It's a picture of Leo. The picture, like, he looks like he's smiling, having fun, but it reminds me of those pictures of like hostages from Vietnam. Like they're told to look good and smile for the camera, but really you look in their eyes and you'd be like, they just want to be saved. Poor Leo. Quote, all he would ask was, is it going to be a great party? If the answer was yes, he was willing to pay. She revealed that each party costs about $500,000. This is for both the mainstream part and then the sex party afterwards. The planner said, great food, expensive alcohol, dancers, acrobats, models. Sometimes we had live animals. Sometimes different performers. It all added up, but he didn't care. Oh, dear God. Oh, dear God. He didn't care. Days after the parties, the mirrors would be removed and the mansion would return to its usual state, the planner said. She explained that she was hired to arrange the food, alcohol, entertainment, decor, but had no say in the guest list or the other aspects. Oh my God. He was hiring both men and women who called themselves, quote, models, but it seemed obvious, at least to me, that they were actually sex workers, the planner said. But that wasn't my role. That would be the role of a member of his team. I just handled the mainstream stuff. Combs continues to insist he has been wrongfully accused and maintains that while sordid, the parties were all consensual. Last week, a witness testified before the grand jury in Combs' trial that he had seen videos kept by Combs' ex, Kim Porter, of major celebrities being victimized at the party. The tapes are said to show at least 2 male stars who were underage at the time. Well, that ought to be interesting. And it goes on. An appropriate. Texas lawyer Tony Busby. Now, if you don't know who Tony Busby is the lawyer in Houston, Texas, who represented all of the, or I would say 99% of the women who filed claims against Deshaun Watson, the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, who was the quarterback for the Houston Texans back then. And he won, basically. They settled in favor of those women. I think every one of those lawsuits. He is now representing 120 new victims who came forward claiming Combs had abused them. Among them are 25 who are underage, including one who was 9 years old when the alleged abuse happened. All right. Busby claimed that the promise of fame and leverage over multiple child victims, as many were attempting to land a record deal. Mr. Combs emphatically and categorically denies as false and defamatory, and he claims that he sexually abused anyone, including minors, said Combs' lawyer, Erica Wolf. Combs is currently being held in custody awaiting trial on these charges. He recently celebrated his underwhelming 55th birthday at the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center. His legal woes exploded last year when a video emerged of him appearing to kick his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, in a Los Angeles hotel. Well, that'll do that, right? Apparently, there's the trial of Diddy podcast. Oh, okay. So this is now a podcast industry, this whole trial. That's interesting. All right, here you go. So interesting article there. This is just common now. How many of these stories have come out now? Not just about this guy, but how many people in Hollywood, how many of them are, I mean, it's Hollywood. It's not a bastion of virtue. It's not. So dark things happen, bad things happen. You know, as Vincent Vega once said, you play with matches, you get burned. And I think that's what, when you go to Hollywood and you want to, be a part of that culture, you're playing with matches. Sometimes you get burned and sometimes you become a monster. And apparently it happens. So, but there you go. All right. Let's do something a little bit more lighthearted. I can't believe I'm actually transitioning into this as lighthearted. But if you've been with the channel over the last few weeks, you know that my favorite show of the year is absolutely The Penguin. So let's talk about that. But any comments you have on Diddy, go ahead and let me know. Dear God, I never liked his music anyways. I was always a Tupac fan. Anyways. So yeah, The Penguin ended yesterday. I was sad to say. Scores series high 2.1 million viewers, and it's going to get way more than that because it's Sunday night. People are watching football. And so it's going to get a lot more there. I'll try to put a little bit of a spoiler wording. It really is, to me. I know some people love Yellowstone and Tulsa, and I know those are good shows as well. I thought Shogun this year was a really good show. If you want to go back and watch Shogun from FX, it should be on. I think it's on Disney Plus now. But for me, this show was just the best. It was the best of the year. I really truly believe that Colin Farrell and Christina Milioti deserve the Emmys, Golden Globes, whatever it is that they can get as an award for a television performance. Whoever plays this, I forgot the name of the The actress who plays Oz's mother, Frances, absolutely phenomenal as well. I mean, everybody. Renzi Feliz, who plays Victor, who I thought was my favorite character all season long. I think if you're going to do a Miles Morales film, he's Miles Morales. He's perfect for it. He's perfect. Great actor, can hold his own with Colin Farrell, and was really just a compelling character, compelling actor, and I think just gets the idea of doing that kind of work, and just loved it. It ended. It was a dark. This show is dark. There's a lot. You get into episodes 5, 6, 7, and then now 8. There are a lot of dark moments, and it becomes hard to root for Oz. Right, he's the main character, but he's a Batman villain. It does end, and you can see how it's leading into the sequel to the Batman movie. It does have a lot of allusions to that at the end. You'll see that as well if you do watch episode 8. If you do watch the season, you do watch the series. But overall, it was just one of the best written series. Lauren LaFranc is the showrunner. She's the one who actually came up with the idea, the initial script, sold it to Matt Reeves on the idea. And Matt Reeves is the producer. Of course, he's the director of the Batman with Robert Pattinson. They loved it, and she did a fabulous job writing the first couple of episodes. They had a great writing team together. Every episode was just so well done, so well written, so well acted. The set design, the music, everything. It really was, to me, just what a quality television show that where everybody involved really paid attention to the details. Even to the point where I was watching interviews with the people who do hair and makeup, and they were talking about, well, we styled the hair in this scene this way to represent this psychological impact of. It's like they went that far where everything whether it was something they wore, a little decor on their dress or in their suit, the way their hair was, the way they walked, the way whatever was in the background, everything was meaningful and purposeful, and it had a message. You get that, there's a little bit of the patriarchy. You talk about that, with Christine Milioti, of course, that's, she's in a mobster's world, of course, but they didn't shove it down your throat. There's a lot of class warfare messages, the poor and the rich, and, the haves and the have-nots. Again, it wasn't put in there, and this is why I enjoyed The Penguin over, and why I trashed Agatha all along, which is probably one of the worst shows of the year. It might be the worst show. I know there's Echo, there's The Acolyte, and there's Agatha all along. Agatha, at least Echo and The Acolyte, you could laugh at because it was bad. It was like so bad it was funny. Agatha all along was just so bad it was like, but it took itself seriously. That's the problem. It thought it was doing something serious. It really wasn't. Anyways, but the reason why Penguin is so good of a show, the quality of the show, everything meant something. And when they talked about themes and social messages, it was part of the script. It was part of the necessary plot points that helped move the story forward and helped develop the characters. And that's how that should be done, right? You can have a show or a movie that has a social message. No one says you can't. What you shouldn't have is just a social message with no plot or no narrative or no, where it's the dominant thing. Where this show did it the right way, where it did have a little bit of a social message that was crucial to the character of Christine Milioti, of Sophia Falcone, that there was a class warfare message that was critical to the way in which Oz was operating his side of the underworld. It was critical to understand the motivations of the characters and why they did things the way they did things. It wasn't just there just to say it was there. And that's why that show is, and so it ended last night, and I know I haven't done a review on the episodes again. As I said, I've been very ill for a little bit, and I'll go back to those. But if you haven't seen this show, absolutely amazing. I can't wait for the next Batman movie. Obviously, Oz is going to be a big part of it. I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to spoil the ending of episode 8. Because if I do, you're going to be, oh, okay, well, that person is that person. I don't want to spoil anything because it just came out yesterday. And I have a lot of respect for the show. If it was Agatha all along, I'd tell you everything that happened because I don't have respect for that show. But I have a lot of respect for the show and for the people behind it and what they did and how they did it. Absolute great entertainment. I'm a huge DC fan. Batman's my favorite. The Penguin has always been one of those characters that It's always been really done well. I mean, you got Danny DeVito who did his version. You had Burgess Meredith in the 60s who did his version, which I grew up as knowing as the Penguin. And then again, like I said, Danny DeVito, now Colin Farrell. Just really just a great character that they've shown a lot of justice to. And again, I couldn't recommend this any. This to me is my. And again, I got a month and a half left or so of the year. I doubt I'm going to see another show that I love as much as this one. But yeah, but if you're looking for a show to watch and you haven't seen this, you have not watched this show, start with episode 1. It'll be one of those shows where you got to you'll binge it. You'll binge it right away. All right. So, and with that, speaking of shows, I will be getting back to my reviews of new movies. Here's the thing. New movies, when they release, a lot of times they come out maybe a day or two ahead in Mexico than they do in the United States, or sometimes they don't come out at all. I'll give you an example. Ferrari came out over a year ago. Last year, I think 2023 in the United States. I had to wait until February of 2024 to see it. So it's really hit and miss. But I should be able to see, like, upcoming, we're going to see Gladiator 2. We got Wicked. This one, Wicked, I hear good and bad. I hear about both these. I hear good and bad. Here's the thing. They're trying to market this as the next Barbenheimer. You know, you got Oppenheimer, the guy film. Here you got Gladiator 2. You got Barbie, the girl film, which is actually now Wicked. You're not going to replicate that. But when it just already when they're trying to force it, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to. That was a very organic thing when Barbie and Oppenheimer came out. There was again, I loved Oppenheimer. I thought it was a great film. Barbie, funny. Again, very feminist oriented. I get that, but it's Barbie. If you're going into Barbie and you're thinking to yourself, oh, they got a feminist, it's Barbie. Sometimes you got to expect these things. Still, that was a very organic thing. They're trying to make this the next Barbie. You can't make the next Barbenheimer. The next, and with Ridley Scott, Gladiator 2, I get it. Gladiator was no Russell Crowe. Of course, that character's dead. You can't have him again. But with Gladiator 2, you look at it's Ridley Scott, and I haven't been excited about the last Ridley Scott. I saw Alien Romulus, and that was produced right, and I wasn't that excited about it. Ridley Scott did Napoleon for Apple TV. I did a review on that, and it was terrible. If I had to give it a score, it'd be a 4 or 5. I don't usually give scores, but it was terrible. Portraying Napoleon as that type of just emasculated man, which he's Napoleon. But there's maybe been 10 people in the history of the world that have done what Napoleon has done. He's not a mumbling little waif of a man who is afraid to talk to a woman and then takes orders from them, or is indecisive, or, it's Napoleon. So again, turning him into that sort of, and I get it's Apple TV, it's Apple. They probably wanted that, but so Ridley Scott again, and he said he didn't care about history, and so I'm kind of like I'm going into Gladiator 2 probably a little wary. Hopefully there'll be some good fights and good action. Of course, Gladiator, legendary, great movie, Oscar winner. Gladiator 2, do I think is going to reach the heights of Gladiator? No, I'm not going to have that expectation. Wicked, hopefully it's entertaining. I don't mind musicals. I loved Wonka. Last year at this time, Wonka came out, and I think the first thing I said to my wife when we got out of the theater was like, that movie makes you feel like it's Christmas. And so hopefully Wicked has the same sort of positive energy, happiness. Hopefully it doesn't try to do already the lead actress there plays the witch, plays the Wicked Witch. Already she's had some horrible things to say about her fans, and the film's gotten some backlash because of some of the things she said, which is just a shame because, that film is gonna have an audience. It's one of the biggest musicals ever to hit Broadway ever. I remember when the book came out, it was incredible. I was working at a bookstore at the time. The book came out, you couldn't keep it in stock. So this thing's got a huge fan base. So it's going to do some money. It's going to make some money. That's for sure. It probably outdoes Gladiator. I bet it makes more money than Gladiator. So hope for the best. Other movies coming out, and we're going to go see these this week and next week. We've got, excuse me, my coffee just kicking in. We got, let's see here. Oh, Moana. Moana 2 coming out. I didn't see the first Moana. I don't know if it's required. It's Disney. What can I say? So I haven't seen that one. Probably go see that as well. Be nice. Maybe take my nephews to it if they're here. Let's see here. Red One or something like that, or with the Rock and Chris Evans. I guess where Santa Claus gets kidnapped or something like that. Moana 2 ought to be another smash following the mega success of June's Inside Out 2. No, it's not going to make Inside Out 2 was awesome. Some people didn't like it. My wife hated it. I thought it was great. I had a lot of fun during it. Moana 2 is not making $1 billion. That's just not happening. That's just not happening. I don't know. No. Thanksgiving, it's looking like the biggest Thanksgiving we've ever had since Chris Riddleman, Chief Revenue Officer of the Texas-based Flicks Brewhouse cinema chain. You can make up a lot of ground very quickly with 3 big movies. Well, yeah, you can. I don't know. It depends. Word of mouth. Word of mouth has been hit and miss for Gladiator 2, depending on early reviews. Again, we already talked about Wicked. And then we've got, like I said, Red One with, I think that comes out this week with The Rock and Chris Evans, where, like I said, they have to go save Santa Claus. So I'll get back into going to the movies, which is nice. They do show movies in English down here in Mexico, which is nice. So, but that's about it. That is it. That's a little pop culture. I had this article here too. Lucifer here. Spend. Wanting Hollywood to spend millions and millions of dollars to give them tax breaks. It sounds like a great idea, but in case you didn't know, they also just passed a 65-cent per gallon tax in California to pay for that. But anyways, we'll save that one for another time. So, but that's about it. Let's get back to this. All right. We've been going for about an hour. It's been awesome. Again, this is my first time doing it, so I really appreciate it. It'll get more technically sound. Like I said, I can't wait till we move into our house and we have a proper studio to run it off of, or a proper place where I can decorate it. For the time being, I threw up some of my stuff, my Legos, my paintings. Yes, those are all my paintings, by the way. I'm not a huge talented artist. I just like to paint. But this has been awesome. This went easier and smoother than I thought it would. I really appreciate it. It's a soft opening. I don't have a schedule yet as to how many times a week I'm going to do this. I was thinking 2. I'm thinking maybe doing like a Tuesday night, Friday night thing. Then again, I like to spend Friday nights with my wife, having fun and having dinner. So I'm sure I have to adjust that. And Saturday nights, like my wife. I like my wife. So she's awesome. She's listening. Hi, honey. So I'll figure out a schedule, but I just wanted to see how this worked. It took me a while to learn the software. That's the one thing, again, it's just me. So any new software, I got to learn it. I got to create everything is I just do on my own. And, it's just fine. I have fun doing it. It's not a complaint, actually. So any suggestions, feedback, anything that you guys want to talk about, please drop it in the comment section. I'm going to be a lot more I apologize for not being active over the last week and a half. It really was, like I said, when you get sick, it gets, when it knocks you down, it puts things in perspective. Number one. Number two, you just focus on getting healthy because, you want to be healthy. There's nothing else more important. And, but now that I'm back to maintaining where I was, we can start getting back into it and start posting more videos. Definitely at least three. I love doing my movie review a week. I love doing my retro movie review, and I love doing my comic book review. I love doing that stuff. If you ever have a suggestion or you want to hear something or you want to, like if there's a comic book or a character you want me to cover, let me know. I'll cover it. And, but I'll start getting back into it. And I appreciate everybody being patient while they wait for those new videos to roll out. But in the meantime, I will sign off like I always sign off. This has been a lot of fun. It's actually got easier as it went along. And I'll learn not to talk with my hands so much. I'm Italian. I'm half Italian. What can I do? We talk with our hands. I'm also part Arab. We talk with our hands. So we doubly talk with our hands here. My coffee's gotten cold, so I'll have to go warm that up. But again, I appreciate everybody listening, everybody checking in. We actually had more viewers than I thought we would. Again, I didn't have any expectations for anything. I just wanted to come out here and just be out here and be doing it and talk. And we'll probably break it up. Like I said, I like doing the politics, but I also like doing the entertainment. Maybe we'll do like one politics wrap up for the week and one entertainment. We'll see. It's a work in progress. Everything evolves. Everything can evolve. I like evolution. We'll see. But again, thank you. And I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to leave. I'll be online. The stream will be offline, but I'll still be online if anybody wants to leave a comment for a little bit. But as usual, from somewhere south of the border, I'm still your reluctant gringo. Salut and a huevo. Thank you for watching.